The film opens with a group of demonstrators demanding justice in a case of mistreatment against an activist named Karen. 6 months ago, during a protest against tax increases, Karen had to receive treatment after sustaining a severe leg injury. However, as time passed without any clear resolution, the demonstrators turned aggressive and clashed with the authorities. In the midst of that protest, Michel, who was there supporting Karen, had to report to the authorities regularly for 3 months, a consequence of his actions during the protest. He did it all for Karen, who is now bedridden due to her injured leg. Karen looks genuinely relieved to see Michel, especially with her upcoming leg surgery scheduled soon. Yet before the procedure, Karen reminds Michel, who is a single father to 1 daughter, to maintain his focus on the tax issues at hand, because his child, Selma, is now entering adolescence and needs extra attention from her father. Meanwhile, over at the equestrian training area, Selma grows furious with her friend Sally, who decides to play a video showing Michel's involvement in that tense protest. Without much hesitation, Selma picks up some horse droppings and smears them on Sally's face. Later that day, Selma's mother Alice arrives with her new partner Bryce. Concerned that Selma might be expelled, they approach the school principal and promise that Selma will apologize for her actions. However, Selma, feeling she did nothing wrong, responds with a discourteous gesture. Considering the family's efforts, the school opts to suspend her instead of expelling her. When they reach home, Alice becomes very upset with Selma for what she did earlier. But Selma, thinking her mother does not understand her situation, asks her to take her to Michel's house. In short, after arriving at her father's place, Selma, who wants her parents to reconcile, asks Michel to end his relationship with Karen. Michel explains that such a request is impossible and pleads with Selma to understand. Moments later, Selma watches a news report about acid rain taking place in parts of Latin America. The ominous report warns that this acid rain might cause massive destruction, prompting other nations to raise their alerts. Cities and towns are on standby for possible evacuation, with citizens preparing to move into bunkers. Michel, however, turns off the TV.
D'ici à 2030, ce sont plus de 1,5 milliard de personnes au total complètes d'eau potable si ce phénomène venait.
Pourquoi tu coupes, ça m'intéressait?
Time moves forward to a heavy downpour. Alice drives Selma back to her boarding school, but becomes enraged when someone hits her car, causing a minor collision. This incident makes Selma realize that both her father and mother tend to be hot-headed in stressful situations. Later that night, Alice closes the bedroom window because the rain keeps coming down. And without warning, the acid rain that started in Latin America has now arrived on European soil as well. By morning, Selma, scheduled for a horseback ride, grows increasingly uneasy upon seeing the strange rain clouds. She panics when she reads an urgent message indicating that the acid rain has reached her city and that her school is in the red zone for the fallout. Alice quickly calls Michel to inform him about the imminent acid rain and confirms that Selma's school is in the red zone. Panicked, Michel sets off to meet Alice, and together they plan to drive as fast as possible to reach their daughter. Back at the school, Selma struggles to manage her horse, causing her instructor to become annoyed. He ties the horse and instructs Selma to wait until the other students return. Meanwhile, Alice arrives on campus and begins searching for Selma. Michel becomes increasingly anxious, noticing the acid rain clouds drawing closer. Shortly after, Alice returns, and both of them realize the frightening situation at hand. Selma has already ridden her horse into the forest. Selma, out in the wilderness, grows fearful as she sees the acid rain approaching from the distance. With overwhelming worry, Michel tells Alice to wait for him in a nearby hangar. He rushes off, determined to find Selma. Selma, terrified, has already witnessed her friends being harmed by the rain, which can be deadly if it makes contact with exposed skin. Thankfully, Michel arrives at the last minute, and both of them manage to reach the hangar. Inside, Michel looks for blankets while anxiously awaiting Alice's arrival. When the rain finally subsides, The city is in chaos with widespread damage and an unsettling atmosphere. While searching for more blankets, Alice receives a phone call from Bryce, who is very worried about her. She reassures him that she and Selma are safe from the acid rain, thanks to Michelle's help. Hearing this makes Bryce feel uneasy, fearing that Alice might reconcile with Michelle. Consequently, Bryce plans to meet Alice and Selma at the edge of the city. Meanwhile, Michelle prepares for a journey toward the safety zone. Night falls, and it becomes cold. Michelle suspects his car might not be able to carry on much longer because of corrosion caused by the acid rain. Realizing they have no choice, they decide to proceed on foot to reach the safe zone. Eventually, they stop by a small restaurant to find water and food. Concerned that the water might be contaminated, Michelle tests it by giving some to a cat. Selma, feeling uncomfortable, discards the water. Michelle then wraps aluminum foil around Selma's shoes to protect her feet from possible chemical exposure. That night, Selma wakes up and goes into the kitchen to check on the cat's condition. She is appalled to find that the cat has passed away due to consuming the contaminated water Michelle provided. This tragic discovery confirms the toxicity of the acid rain. By morning, they resume their journey on foot with a companion named Wanda, striving to reach the city's bridge checkpoint. Many people, all desperate to escape the danger, rushed across, creating a chaotic scene. Amid the commotion, they become separated. As the bridge begins to collapse, officials instruct Alice to move faster. With everyone pushing, Alice accidentally falls into the river below, which is already contaminated by the acid rain. Unable to do anything, Selma and Michelle are distraught at the sight of Alice's tragic end. They can only surrender to the unfortunate situation. Eventually, they arrive at a shelter facility where Michelle gives Selma an identification wristband. The plan is to continue on to Karen's location, as it is rumored to be safe there. Unfortunately, their vehicle is forced to stop once again because the bridge ahead is destroyed. They have to find another route on foot. But soon, ominous clouds appear once more. As the rain draws near, Selma, already tired from the grueling trek, can no longer keep up with the group, causing them to fall behind. Panicking, they seek refuge in a small underground bunker just in time, saving themselves from further exposure. After the downpour ends, Michelle, whose leg is injured, urges Selma to keep moving in hopes of finding a safer place. Overcome by exhaustion and despair, Michelle suggests they seek assistance, hoping there might still be other survivors. Fortunately, they are offered shelter by a woman named Deborah, who lives with her son, Will. Deborah has chosen to remain at her home for personal reasons. She offers to treat Michelle's injuries and invites him upstairs to rest, while Will takes Selma to see his room. Selma grows curious about the medical monitors present, but Deborah hurriedly enters and becomes uneasy, asking them to leave Will's room. Michelle realizes these medical devices are vital for Deborah and suggests relocating them to a more secure place, fearing the acid rain might enter the house. Grateful for his help, Deborah apologizes, explaining that she cannot share their food because she and her son have limited resources to survive until help arrives. Understanding but still in need of supplies, Michelle takes an axe and heads to a vacant house nearby in search of water and food. Meanwhile, Deborah confides in Selma, revealing that her son is experiencing kidney failure and urgently needs a transplant. Since she cannot abandon the crucial medical machines, Deborah has no choice but to wait for rescuers to come. Around this time, Michelle receives a call from Karen, who is trapped in a collapsed tunnel after the hospital was destroyed, and now can only wait for emergency assistance. As another wave of rain threatens them, Deborah acts strangely and locks the door to her basement, leaving Michelle worried that the intensity of the downpour will damage her home. However, Deborah simply resigns herself to fate, stating she cannot leave Will on his own. Feeling sympathy, Selma pleads with Michelle to help them. Torn between caution and compassion, Michelle hesitates, frustrating Selma. Under mounting stress, she rushes out of the house with no clear direction. Realizing the area is surrounded by marshes, Michelle quickly returns to his vehicle but grows desperate when he notices Selma heading into the swamp. Seeing his daughter in danger, Michelle rushes in to rescue her, injuring his feet in the contaminated water. Thankfully, he manages to pull Selma to safety, though both suffer from the painful impact of the acid. With dawn breaking, Selma is relieved when a rescue team finally arrives. They are transported to a proper shelter, but Michel's injuries are severe. Both of his legs must be amputated due to the extreme corrosion from the acid. Despite his immense suffering, Michel tells Selma to stay close to him. Overcome by remorse, Selma realizes how her actions contributed to this devastating outcome. And thus, the film concludes, leaving an atmosphere of deep reflection. The ending evokes a profound sense of burden and responsibility for everyone involved. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Because by subscribing, you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.